John Wolper. We're here at the Baseline Show every Wednesday at noon U.S. Eastern, and on Saturdays at what is it still 8 a.m. U.S. Eastern in India?
7:30
8:30 a.m.
U.S. Eastern.
Yeah, I can't do the math on that switch, but every week it's good to see everybody. Here we are with our illustrious panel. We have Mark Haddle, the Indomitable. We have Keith Salzman, Yoav Bitan, Mark Rimza. The latter three there, Keith, Yoav, and Mark, are now officially on the Baseline team at Consensus Mesh. Welcome. Came over from General Motors, GM, the GM3. We have, I'll be working with Sonal and exclusively supporting the Baseline protocol and washing my car. No, I'm kidding. We have Charles Todd, Manik Jain, Ananth Natarajan, Jack Wiring, the inevitable, and Diogo Vasquez. Diogo, it's good to see you. We'll have to have you introduce yourself, and Parth Bhatt as well. And our illustrious interviewee today, Antoine Toulme, who is from Splunk, and Sonal will be interviewing him today, and we'll be finding out what's going on with Splunk. But before we do that, Diogo, would you like to say a few words about what you're doing, how you got here, and anything else?
Yes. So hello, everyone. Thank you, John. I had spoken with Sonal before this, but I joined Baseline based on some work conversations that I was having where I'm working, and then I decided to dive into blockchain quite recently, actually. And Baseline was one of the ways that I'm actually deep diving a little bit more, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you. It's good to see you. Hey Parth, what's up with you? Do you want to say anything?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I have been attending Baseline meetings past in 2020. This is like I'm coming back, so nice to be here and trying to basically keep myself updated on what's going on in this blockchain space.
All right. Well, lots to get updated about. Good to see you too. Does anybody else have any announcements? Anything to say? Anything to talk about? All right. Well, Sonal, it's your show, and Antoine, it's great to see you. Say hi to all of our friends over at Splunk.
All right. Thanks for joining us, Antoine. So if you'd like to start us out, we'd love to have a introduction of yourself, your role, and other experiences.
Absolutely. Sonal, I wanted to thank you for inviting me over to the show. It's a pleasure and an honor. My name is Antoine. I'm originally from France, been in Silicon Valley since 2008, 2009. Worked mostly in startups. I finished a job at Acer Cloud in 2017. Was doing IoT there. And then I found myself looking to jump into something exciting, something that would break away from Silicon Valley Web2 jobs, which by then at that time felt like it was kind of you were working for the big fours, or you were going to work for the big fours eventually. So I got a cold email from Daniel Heeman from Consensus, and I jumped on that, and I worked at Consensus for 18 months. And then left on to do a little bit of consulting, worked in startups, and I've been at Splunk since March 2020. So in a separate life, over 10 years ago, I used to work for a company called Intalio, where we were doing all sorts of interesting things with digitization, business processes. And I find that the Baseline protocol has kind of this ferment as well. It's talking about some very basic needs from a business perspective that I feel resonate well with my past experience. So that is my relevant experience, hopefully.
Thank you. And can you share what use cases and processes that you experience in your daily environments and work at Splunk that the Baseline framework would and could be applied to?
Yes, that's going to be a long one. So the Baseline framework, I had this discussion with John when we were talking about how would you pitch the baseline framework to bystanders, people who don't really want to get into a crypto discussion, they don't really care about blockchain, they're busy with business, right? And so what John was trying to do, which I find it is the ultimate art of pitching and selling something, is that we don't talk about the tech, we don't talk about how blue sky it is, how revolutionary it could be. We talk about how it could make your life better right now, right? And so that really helped me understand a little bit more about what he was trying to achieve with Baseline, what the committee was trying to achieve with Baseline, and got me thinking about how that could be used with Splunk. So at Splunk, we're all about one thing, which is we're trying to help our customers gather insight, answer very complex and hard questions from the data that they have. We have data flying from all over different places. We can correlate that against time. We can make sense of it. We can extract value. We can apply, machine learning to it. We can make sense of all those disparate sources of data. And we work across all the industries that you can think of, especially fintech, security, have been kind of daily bread in a sense. And we at Splunk think we could use a little bit the baseline stuff to correlate and make sure that the data that we're seeing is trusted between parties, right? So there's a requirement in the spec that says that if you're using baseline, then you should be able to correlate that back to your auditing records, making sense of your systems of record, making sense of all the transactional data. So Splunk can integrate with that and make it possible for folks to directly correlate the raw data to what they see in the hash that is being stored on Ledger. And that gives us right away the ability to trust the data that we see in Splunk. Right? There's another use case, just more of a personal pet peeve of mine, which that I see that we're now with Splunk in year 2 or 3 of working with the Open Telemetry project, which is a new way to collect data. And it's not just transactional data. It could be logs, could be metrics, could be traces. And that very rich data is now coming from a variety of microservices and cloud deployments. And I would like to be able to trust that data by anchoring it into a ledger, right? So having the ability to say, I'm seeing all this activity coming from my partner, they're sharing their logs with me, and I have the ability to go back and check that that's exactly what happened and there's no tampering whatsoever of that data. So that's kind of where we are. We've been working with partners of the baseline protocol. They specifically provide. I think we made a big splash at ETH Atlanta. We made a dashboard that showcased how we could leverage all the information that is being exported from this type of systems, especially all the ins and outs of all the systems of records that are being interfaced into baseline, and how we can make that come alive. So you can see now the flow of all the information coming in and out, being stored in Ledger. It's not enough for you just to know that there's a ledger somewhere with your data. Did it make it? Has it been confirmed? Do you have alerts in place if something doesn't work? So that's a little bit of what we see in terms of a baseline integration.
Thanks for sharing. Are there any questions from the group?
Is this something?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mark.
I was going to say, is this something that Splunk would be including within a larger, product rollout or suite of offerings?
That's a good question. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let me talk to you a little bit about how we look at blockchain as Splunk in general, because I think that's going to be very helpful for you to frame it in your mind. So first off, we had already made contributions to the baseline protocol. We made, I think back in 2020, in my early days at Splunk, one of my colleagues pushed a number of dashboards and information to baseline, made it possible for you to get all this information sent to Splunk right away. And then we kept going. We worked with Provide on additional dashboards and metrics for that. On top of that, so the strategy of our team at Splunk, I think is interesting, which is we could go and build a SKU for blockchain. We could go and build a complete separate commercial offering for blockchain services at Splunk. But we find out that there is really no limit to how people would want to be able to leverage that blockchain information. So what we decided instead is to make it a capability of the Splunk platform, right? So all our offerings are free of charge. They're part of your subscription at Splunk. You can use that as part of your ingest or workload or however you're leveraging Splunk right now. And we don't charge a separate fee or ask you for a premium on top of that for your usage. So this helps because we're not in a sales situation where we're trying to sell you a very different offering. And we make it available to our customers in two ways. One is we're available as part of the sales system, the sales process at Splunk. Without getting into too much details, we kind of enable our sales force to be extremely precise and strike hard on targets and show that we have a blockchain practice at Splunk. And that has been helpful to break into accounts, to really make ourselves a separate offering from every other data provider out there. And the other one is we are part of the added value, what they call the on-demand services, part of our Splunk offering. And any Splunk customer can reach out to us and ask for information, for a consultation with us, just to get more information about blockchain and baseline.
Thanks, Antoine.
Phenomenal, Antoine. And great segue into the question that I initially had. In your messaging to your customers in your sales outreach, how are you getting in what's your feedback loop from your customers and prospective customers on this transformational capability? And how are you getting their buy-in to say, Splunk's doing something inherently different that's valuable to me? I'd love to have our audience help understand positioning this type of transformation to business stakeholders. Can you talk about how you're doing that at Splunk?
Okay, so that's a very interesting playbook, and there are two parts of this which are very different audiences. For our internal sales audience, what is the most important thing for our sales to understand is what I just said earlier, which is this is not a separate capability. There is not a forklift upgrade, involved. You don't need to stop what you're doing and rethink your strategy with your customer. We're here to help with your account, and this is just more data coming in. So there are two types of data that we're making available to Splunk customers. We can Splunk ledger analytics, meaning we can make available to them everything that happens on chain, from transactions, blocks. We can see transaction traces now. We can see the whole detail of everything that's being called in a contract trace. We can Splunk NFTs. We can get all the ERC20 data you want. All this is available. Just install our toolkit and get going, right? And at the same time, we have developed infrastructure monitoring specialized for blockchain, right? So we have the ability to really monitor Geth better, for example. We work with data providers. We know our way around different types of blockchains, not just Ethereum, but anything enterprise, we're ready for it. And that makes kind of our approach a no-brainer and a very low threshold, no risk approach, right? We're added value. So that's for ourselves. And our sales walk away from this saying, I should just have a chat with my customers and my prospects about this. I should bring it up. Now, for customers, we're seeing, and this is where I think you're going to get the kick out of the discussion, is we used to see a lot of IT folks come to us and say, we want to use Splunk because we have over 10 different tool providers, right? We have acquired this company, they came with X and X provider. We have this little legacy app that's running in the back. We don't know exactly how it's working, but it's supporting a critical capability. Guess what? Now we're doing blockchain. So we would want to have one platform provider that can make sense of all our data at once. We cannot train everybody on all those different sources of data. We also want to move to the cloud, right? So we're going to have a variety of use cases from legacy apps that run on bare metal to stuff that's going to be in Kubernetes in GCP, for example, right? And all this variety of use cases is extremely difficult to capture. And on top of that, guess what? We're doing an NFT drop tomorrow, and we need to ingest Discord data because we use that as a support system. So we support all those use cases, right? We have now the amplitude of supporting all the traditional IT logs, elements, all of this, and we can go all the way to showing you real time who's buying your NFT, for how much, what is the current ceiling, what's the current floor. We can help you with making sense of this by the minute, and we can set alerts for all those elements. We can really help your team sleep at night better. This is not new, right? This has been the mission of Splunk from day one, is how do we gather more insight from all this data, and how do we make it actionable for people so they can get ahead and they can, you know, go home early. That's really a slogan from Splunk. So hopefully that answers some of your questions. What we're seeing is our blockchain capability is a differentiator already in some of our early discussions. And we want to be crypto forward, meaning that we see it coming up more and more often. I'll give you an example out of nowhere. We've had a very revealing discussions, one with a company that's crypto native, and I was telling them, hey, you know, you could get some more insights. You just need to run this additional software. And they said, well, we don't have an AWS account anymore, right? We don't need one. We're completely crypto native. So we want to rely also on cloud providers and data providers such as Splunk that don't force us to have ups, that don't force us to have so much leverage. And so there's a tweet that Nate McCurvey likes to refer to in our team, which is that we're seeing companies also move away from the point of view of being monolithic, complete warehouses to becoming protocols, and have a very lean way of interfacing with others. And this is where Bizline just makes a ton of sense. You have the ability now to remove all the choke points between your partners and yourself. You can really integrate at the smart contract level to really create composable interactions between all those different companies. So a long answer. Hopefully that was helpful.
No, super helpful. And I have another follow-on one that's pseudo related to the innovation cycle that Splunk is undertaking to embrace decentralized technologies. A lot of major enterprises and even small startups that I work with, cost is of a real big concern. You highlighted that Splunk is providing this baseline service as a value add to your customers. Can you talk us through the cost basis analysis that you went through to determine how you're able to achieve that without increasing price points? Because there's a lot of fluidity and concern around gas prices and compute. I'd love to look a little behind the scenes as to how Splunk is approaching to bundle in revolutionary capability without increasing your cost basis.
Well, okay, so I'll go with the joke that you may have heard that Splunk is extremely expensive, or so is the reputation that we have illegally gotten over the course of years, right? And I think that's kind of a misnomer. It's just what we do is so critical. People are ready to pay quite a bit to get the level of insight you can get from the data at Splunk. This is not new, right? So this has been going on for a little while. You have to remember that Splunk started as a very nimble box that you would put in your data center on-prem, right? And so I like when I was doing interviews with folks to kind of get them into the mold of what Splunk can be for them in their life when they joined the team. Is that said, well, Splunk started as a small box in data center, then started to grow more and more storage. People didn't want to get to let go of that data, so they started clustering. So and now it's becoming a cloud-based system, right? All this information is vital for the company. And so we don't need to make you pay more for this than what you would already pay at your Splunk subscription. We believe that the data that you're getting is completely worth your subscription, your cost of ingesting it. So to back up a little bit, there are two ways right now you can buy Splunk. One is based on how much you ingest per day, right? And the other one, which is becoming increasingly popular, is based on workloads. It's how much you search every day. So yeah, there's a lot of that going on, and we don't need to have a completely different sales strategy just for blockchain. We're well equipped with our existing approach to make everybody successful, so we don't need to go into a separate sales discussion. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Thanks for giving us a behind the scenes look.
No worries.
I think Otto has got a question up there. I know, Sonal, you got him, but I have to ask before we leave, Charles. I've been trying to figure out if that background is a background or your real office. If it's your real office, I'm moving in with you.
Come on over, John.
That is super cool. Otto, go ahead.
All right, Antoine, a very interesting. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us. You were just explaining a little bit about your involvement with Baseline and so on, and sort of Splunk's ability to like analyze these large set of logs from various systems, right, and make sense of it, right? But it occurs to me, right, we could like enhance that capability and say, all of these events that are happening in these systems, you could prove things about that, right?
Yeah.
Without necessarily revealing, proprietary or confidential information about these systems, and then just use Baseline for that and enhance,
Agree.
that ability, and you could, just use Baseline for like, a use case around that. I'm sure you probably thought about something like that. It sounds like you have. And if so, are you at liberty to maybe share an example or just a cool use case that you might be considering, where you leverage your knowledge?
Absolutely, and I will not. Okay. So without going into zero knowledge, because that to me is more involved, and there's so much more you can get out of this. But let's go to boil it down to the most basic use case that I can think of with Baseline, and I will yield here also to my team, right? So this is from before my time. This has been pioneered by Nate McCurvey, by Ryan Moore, by Siegfried, by Stephen and team. And when I joined the team, they were already really hard at work on proving one thing, which has been instrumental to Splunk customers, which is, can I trust that data that's in my Splunk? The data that is stored in Splunk can be modified or attacked, right? There were multiple hacks where the hackers didn't just come in; they came in and then they removed themselves from the logs, and then good luck finding out that they've been here, right? That's the first move. They don't come in to steal; they come in to stay, right? So Splunk is a great target for this type of attacks. So we have with Splunk the ability to guarantee integrity of the data that is stored in Splunk. That is something that you turn on in your logs. That whenever you store a bucket, that makes it available to you. And the team, you can look online. We have been working on something called data integrity that has become actually available. I think we have even now received the patent for it. And the idea was for us to be able to secure all the data that is being stored in our buckets and make sure that it's not being manipulated. Very simple, very straightforward, very easy for our customers to understand, right? And then you want to be able to use a separate source of truth from what Splunk is, so you can go back to it and say, this is the hash of the data that I stored. I did not manipulate that, and therefore it's good to go. I'd love to tease you on one thing that's, I was reading the spec of Baseline, and I noticed that most of the use cases actually between different parties, different customers, but I would actually wager that there is immense need to build trust even inside one party across time. So for example, I'm currently working on the OpenTelemetry project, and I've been looking at finding a way to add this type of identifiers and kind of batch and hash all the data of a particular set of records that are being sent to Splunk, right? So you can go back and say, on that machine, I collected all those logs. They were tagged by the machine, and then I stored the hash of it on a ledger. And then when I get that data in Splunk, I can always go back and say, yes, the data has not been tampered in transport between that machine and that Splunk environment. And I can look at it 3 months later and still say, this is still true, has not been modified since, right? So I believe that the baseline use case of trusting the data, making it available, sharing it with others, and giving it actual value would make a ton of sense for us to build on.
Hey, Antoine, I got a question about that. I'm a
Sure.
big fan. I mean, clearly, we've had, state hashing for a while. I mean, there was what was that company called that was early in the day? They would basically state hash any database or system you had onto Bitcoin or anything. Oh, man, it started with a T, and I'm going up on it. Andreas has raised his hand. I'm going to back out of the way because we're doing hand raising.
I remember. They actually had. I think Ericsson was an investor in it. What was the name again? Yeah, I know. They were doing like state hashing. They were doing like hash chains, and it was
basically
they came out of Lithuania. They came Lithuania, Latvia. Estonia. Sorry. They did it for the Estonian government with their that was the blockchain that they used for issuing passports and everything.
Right, and you can go onto the New York Times classified section and you'll find like hashes in there from time to time, right? So I mean, they're just basically using the blockchain as the New York Times, right, as a sort of a timestamper for those hashes.
Yeah. You can do that. Yeah. My question actually, Antoine, would be, wouldn't it make sense to give the servers, even though they might be, virtual, basically an identity, issue it, and they can do VCs, and then you can using the VC HTTP API from like W3C, you can start to be interoperable, because it's like the reference implementation, everything's there, and then you just put a pointer to where your storage is of that log, right? That people can access, and then you have put that into the credential subject or as a link relation to in the VC, and you're basically done, right? As long as the data is accessible.
Exactly.
I mean, to me, there's three parts of baselining that matter. There's proving that we have the same information, right? In traditional systems, right? Like Splunk. Proving something about that information, and doing so to occasionally, we've been doing this with SAP, who's been leading this study on where do you need baselining and where do you not need baselining. It's quite useful. And there are a couple of cases. The Battleship game is a good example of where, two parties can, find a useful use of baselining. But most of the time it gets interesting when you get third, fourth, fifth, and n number of parties, because two of the parties or more need to prove something to a third party, and information security practice would very, very much like to not have to give the clear text to that third party in order to coordinate. And then the third part that really sings to me, and the one that I think we haven't been as focused on, and I think to our detriment, because I think this is where you can get into some really interesting machinery, and I think it was where Splunk is huge, is using it, dare I say, as fancy Kafka, right? To say, in to your point about internally in a company, you can just use Kafka, right? Have all the machines, look at the central state machine, and drop things in pub/sub to it, and watch for key value pairs and key off of that, right? And as long as you have a company with a CIO, I don't know why you would need to get into doing that under zero knowledge with fancy, state machines that are tamper resistant and stuff like that. You're inside one company, you've got some rule of law. But when you do it between companies, and I want to say, hey, third bank, watch for this location on this public bulletin board. And there's going to be some piece of nonsense that shows up there. And when it does, you know, amongst all the other nonsense that shows up on, say, a base ledger or any other kind of CCSM, when it shows up, run it through your validator. If it's valid, do the thing that we agreed you would do. Right. So it's really about process management from there. And it looks like a general loose coupling design pattern from there. So that those three attributes of baselining seem to be the thing that kind of sings to me. And I have to think that Splunk could do crazy cool things with that, to say, yep, our log file says this counterparty's log file says this. We have consistency. We have something about that is going to trigger an event. That's going to go, you know, and we want another party to do something as a result of that log file state. You know, and I know that's very high level meta, but I wonder if, you know, as a pattern, it's, you know, I'm seeing Otto nod his head. I wonder if we can't explore that a little bit.
I'm happy to give you a couple examples if you're game. So we have with OpenTelemetry a new concept called tracing. Have you heard of that at all? That changed a little bit of my view into this type of systems. So traces are very simple. You just add an ID to a message, right? And it can be any message. It can be HTTP, it can be anything else. But the interesting part of it is that you start chaining those IDs. So you can actually say, this trace has multiple spans. It went to 5 different systems, and you can see the propagation of the traces. And what's really interesting is that, let's say you have microservices with Kubernetes, all of a sudden, you can find out that your database is a hotspot because there are 3 different HTTP endpoints that are hammering it all the time. You should have a cache in the middle, etc. Great for your own devs, great for your own ops. Now, let's make this more general. You're working with a partner, and they make those traces also available to you. There's a stream of data that is coming from that partner, who you know from a commercial agreement. You barely have any idea how their ops are actually working, but you're getting trace data from them. And that trace data contains quite a bit of confidential information. Some of it may be actually edited out, but you can see that it's been signed by them, and that there's a baseline record that shows that this trace has not been manipulated and not lying to you, right? And that baseline ledger is helpful because you can always go back and say, yeah, we are operating under a set of rules, and you can even go toward that for billing. So I'm calling this API of yours. You can see everything that's going on their side. And now you have complete transparency of what is really going on in their environment. So
that's a great example. And also, it struck me. I mean, Andreas and I are working on treetrunk.io. Shameless plug. With Tree Trunk, I just counted the other day. It's like a dozen and a half, like almost 2 dozen services that we are knitting together. I mean, I remember Flywheel when I ran that company. We had 14 different web services running, and there was a guy, John Sheehy, who was really he had I don't think the company's running anymore, but he was really into, you know, web services as distributed systems, and how we have to be able to you know, have a greater insight into the state of, and healthiness of our web services without being inside those web services, because they're not our company. You know, but more than just, you know, am I getting a ping off of them, right? You know, so performance data, did anything change inside their system that could possibly change, you know, impact my system, even though the APIs have stayed the same, right? The endpoints look the same, but there's stuff going on behind the scenes that is not the same. And I need to be able to know that stuff, but I shouldn't know that stuff, right? So I think that's an interesting case where, you know, where could, you know, stuff that Splunk is generating lead to better coordination with companies that are using each other's web services, without exposing internals that they shouldn't be exposing to each other. Man, I've actually not had a serious thought about that until now. So interesting.
Yeah, we I actually filed an RFC with Fabric, old flame of yours, to enable distributed tracing between all the participants. And this is also something that I've been working on with the basic community. So just the JSON RPC endpoint right now is able to get all the traces working. So you have Basically is actually able to report which methods you're calling, right, as part of your traces.
Fabric. You never forget your first love, even after you stop living together.
It's really, it gets really bad when, emotionally, when your ex ghosts you. Never ever talks to you again.
Yeah, I call Fabric up and like, you up?
Until they come back around and join the baseline show.
Yeah. So I wanted to quickly, so before like ask a question, make a comment, I wanted to like give a special shout out and kudos to Antoine for actually going through the biggest one of the three baseline protocol standards documents. You still have 2 to go, my friend. You still have 2 to go.
Oh no. Okay.
Yeah, has been really helpful. I'm so sorry that I have not like responded. It's like but it has been a bit crazy. But I will get to it in time, and we can it has been extremely helpful, and it will make it significantly better because we'll add a lot of more explanatory text that is sort of like assumed and is not explicit, so that's going to be added explicitly. What I can tell you already is like we're not going to change the requirements, we're just adding more text around them.
That's great. Yeah,
but thank you.
So ASMR thing, requirement number 3 is
exactly. So there's active effort to reduce the number of requirements. I'm like, no, they're all good, they're all important. So we're adding more text around that, and I think that will make it much more. We'll make it such that John has to read more text.
Yeah.
When he does his audiobook of the baseline protocol, and I'm sure it will make it much more understandable, especially such that it's like Keith and Joff and Mark don't have to scratch their head all the time because they're like going, what the fuck was he thinking about?
Hey, family show.
Oh please. So but the actual thing, so after this kudos, so it's like talking about tracing. If you look at DITCOM, right? DITCOM messaging, that actually has that in it. And because you're using signatures and everything, you have that built in. So for asynchronous tracing, especially privacy preserving, it's completely built in. And now I'm throwing in a plug for the integrated trust network, which is going to be launched sometime this year, probably around the middle of the year, as a federated CA using DITs and VCs and so forth. Okay. It is actually
using my yellow pages. Is it my damn yellow pages that I'm looking for?
That is basically your global phone book. Right. Yes, exactly.
Get it done. Need the yellow pages.
Yeah, it's like Splunk. Hey, if you guys want to, I mean, your Splunk is a member of MEF, right? MEF is part of the ITN, and MEF members are part of the ITN, Integrated Trust Network. So if Splunk wants to run a node on the ITN, like, let's go, right? So it's like
yeah. And by the way, I mean, this is bigger than Splunk, right? This is our customers, this is our community, this is the people who are trying to leverage OpenTelemetry for good. And this could be beneficial to the whole ecosystem of people trying to do tracing and really getting better at standardizing collection of metrics and logs and trace. This stuff has been going on. It's in the word of our own OpenTelemetry folks, it's been a shame that this space has been so fragmented for years. So we're coming together finally to make this so much easier for our customers to adopt one technology that's vendor neutral, to help them get their job done. And this is the type of integration that will 10x their investment. And so I'm going to try to build something around that. It won't be a big lift because you've done all the work. If you have DITCOM ready, we have,
not only do we have DITCOM ready, we have a digital twin ready that is standard compliant, has a W3C universal wallet, has an EDV, has W3C EDV built in, has VC HTTP APIs, has data sharing in it, and has the core services APIs for ITN. So you can create DIDs, update DIDs. You know, we can issue membership credentials as identities. You can do it. We have the universal resolver. We have revocation list 2020 optimized with sparse Merkle trees. So it's like, it's all there. It's ready to go. You want to
digital twin. I always think of that Star Trek episode with the two Rikers.
Yeah. So anyway, but it's all ready to go. Testnet's up. If you guys want to join, like, ping me. It's like Splunk is a MEF member, so you're automatically, you can easily slide into the club.
All right, so Andreas, let me back up because I want to explain this for maybe people who are less technical than you and me. And I usually don't do this, right? I'm a geek. I like to go into technical stuff, but I feel like this is important enough that we need to explain it for the English speakers out there. So you're
Correct.
saying that with your technology, we can now create identities on demand for anyone who wants to participate in an ingest of any sort that would allow us then to authenticate and sign any message, say a log, a metric, a trace, coming from any one of the members of the network, that then can go to Splunk, and then Splunk can use this technology to verify the authenticity, the provenance, the signature, the that everything makes sense, and that using baseline also make sure there's no misses, that nobody left one message out of this, for example, so we can chain authenticity of those messages, and we can create this type of trusted pipeline of data, and we can integrate that into our offering.
Yeah, we just ran a performance test with the European Commission around tailpipe admissions for 280 million cars. So we can process issuance of vehicle registrations for 1 million vehicles in about 3 minutes. And we can do tailpipe admissions and then sending it over to the EC as VCs with verification and everything, with verifiable presentation, in like doing 1 million of those in about 5 minutes. That includes ITN, that includes the universal resolver lookups, everything, including DIDCOM, authentication, DIDAuthn, everything.
Very cool.
Whole 9 yards.
So you basically have a digital twin of each vehicle, right? And you have a DID of each vehicle, which can be resolved with permission against a registration number or something like that. But
they're presenting you the registration. The verifiable presentation that is going to the EC has the vehicle registration in it, has and has the tailpipe emission credential in it. So so the EC receives it, validates the DID, does the authentication, validates all the VC, validates the verifiable presentation, and validates the verifiable credentials in that verifiable presentation. So we have scaled this. So we've proved out that we can do this at scale.
Okay, and it still manages to hide the identity of the vehicle outside of the authorities or whoever it is that need to be looking at it.
Yes, this is entirely between the vehicle and the registration authority and the vehicle and the EC. So that's it.
But the nice thing is that you wouldn't have to call the API of the registration authority. It is verifiable on site on its the equivalent of a QR code type of a thing, right? It calls the
digital twin of the car, which is like an abstraction layer. Think of it as your universal translator.
Yeah, I mean, essentially digital twin would be modeling the actual emissions of a typical vehicle in that of that model, right? And you would be comparing data from the sensors of an individual vehicle with the digital twin, which is probably at whichever regulator.
No. It's like these are self-issued credentials, right? The EC report is actually going to come out, hopefully sometime Q2. They're just writing it up. It's just to prove out that you can process, you can do full authentication, round trips, and verifiable credential at scale. It just happened to be tailpipe admission. It's like
it's a proof of concept, right?
No, this is more than a proof of concept. It's like we can do this tomorrow.
In the sense
all
that
of Europe.
it can be done
tomorrow. We can do it for the entire world. We can do it for the entire world.
Okay.
It's like for every single vehicle on this planet, we could do that tomorrow.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So it's like we've proven it out. We can scale that up. But anyway, I don't want to dominate this one.
Yeah,
yes,
thank you.
Wonderful stuff. Antoine, Sonal, I'm gonna pass it back to you. Reset the room a bit. Okay. Sonal, if you have other things you'd like to bring up with Antoine, and also I don't want to miss. We want to talk about a couple of things that are happening in the baseline community. Please, everyone, go and check out the Battleship game that has been released. It's super cool. Battleship Baseline is on the website, baseline-protocol.org. Go and check it out. It's a great way to learn baselining in its simplest form, and then you can, and come and propose new proposals for improving it, and maybe we can give you a grant for doing that. So we have a big war chest right now of grant money. You're going to want to take advantage of that and get creative, and then propose a grant. Just go to baseline-protocol.org, and the grants data repo is, you can propose an improvement proposal, and we can turn it into a grant. And so I'll go ahead.
So I will have one last question for Antoine that was on Twitter, and then we'll spend the last minute or so on some community updates. But somebody on Twitter asked, for baseline to be widely adopted, enterprises need low/no code solutions. What tools are needed to move past these bespoke implementations and allow enterprises to build baseline patterns in their systems internally? I.e., how can Splunk customers get baselined?
Simple answer, just get Andreas to write it. That's.
Oh yeah, actually, I have a great answer to this because I thought about it. I think consensus.
Antoine, can I take a very quick stab at that?
Yeah, go, Jack. Go.
Yeah, I mean, just as we've talked about how Splunk is so much of the engine to data analytics strategy within many of these enterprise organizations, there's a huge opportunity for us to apply all the logs and analytics that are transpiring through Splunk with the various other systems that have been part of this greater baseline protocol conversation. Whether that's things that are transpiring within Microsoft Dynamics 365, whether that's settlement that's happening through the SAP portal or platform, there's so much opportunity for us to apply the benefits that customer environments get in their leveraging of Splunk, which is so many already, and to tie that in with these other systems. And so that's something that certainly has been exciting to us, and we're coming across more customer environments that are looking to tie these together at this juncture.
Yep, Provide is definitely one, really the most, maybe the only one right now that is really going after low code, no code.
And it is our goal by Q2 to have Splunk as one of the connectors that are right out of the box incorporated into Shuttle. It is one of the key ones that are on the docket right now. We're very close to the fine tuning of that, to have that relatively plug and play, and to be able to configure those work steps right out of the box through Shuttle with Splunk.
Ooh. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, exactly. This is the type of things is when baseline becomes almost part of your background. You're not using Provide, you're using value And baseline is the trick, is a mechanism in the back, is allowing you to go 10x faster, to create partnerships and create very intense collaboration with your partners. And that's what you want.
That's something we should talk about before we close here. And Sonal and I we're talking about it last night or yesterday, actually yesterday morning. It strikes me that it's time for the community and all of us, Splunk, EY, Consensus, everybody, Microsoft, SAP. I have not found, and I'm putting out an APB officially right now, I have not found a study that specifically carves out what is quite easily deduced billions and billions and billions of dollars, untold numbers, spent by companies to do transformation projects or improvement projects, IT projects across multiple parties. And if anybody has such a study, let me know. I haven't seen it. We're looking at Gartner, we're looking at Forrester, IDC. Haven't seen it. Found one on workflow management, but it's a lot of that's going to be conflated with internal single company workflow management. So you can't even look at that number. So we want to, if we don't find it, we're going to commission, or at least I intend to rally some money around commissioning some original research by one or more of the majors, pestering the majors to say, hey, because I think there's a lot of companies that need this data now, not just baselining. I think that, what Richard Geno Brown's doing is the same, it's targeting the same problem, multi-party compute. It all comes down to, improving how we interact and work together. And we all know that, ever since certainly COVID intensified the need for companies to work together. But I bet you that 4 out of 5 CISOs will tell you that they're terrified about how much data they're leaking to each other in doing so.
So
right,
John, I know you want to close. I know you have a lot of stuff to go.
No,
for,
go ahead.
And I just want to give you a hint of who you should invite next after me, because that person has the answer of the question you just asked and has the answer to that Twitter question. It's actually a guy who works for Consensus. His name is Marwan Zelig. He's been at Consensus for 4 months. And he was prior to that working for Art Systems, which is specialized in low-code, zero-code environments. So I'd love for you to pick his brain and find out exactly why he made that move, how is that going, and what insights and learnings he's bringing over from his long tenure in this type of environments.
What was it? Could you repeat his name or spell it?
His name is Marwan Zelig. Marwan, Marouen, and last name is Zelig.
Got him.
You got him. We used to work together a long time ago. I know he's made some great strides in APAC, and he's been very good at really going deep inside customer use cases. I'd love for him to come on your show and for you to ask him pointed questions about how he could make his life better as a salesperson at Consensus, selling baseline.
That's us.
I just told him that you're saying nice things about him behind his back.
You're quick, John.
Thank you.
Slack, man. Slack is good. Well, thanks for that, Antoine. But don't you think? I mean, it is time for us. There needs to be a Gartner Magic Quadrant for this sort of thing, regardless of baselining it. Right? Multi-party stuff is a thing now.
Oh, it is. It's been going on forever.
Oh yeah.
I mean, remember web services? I used to have like the WSDL stuff by Microsoft back in 2002, when Microsoft sat down everybody in the conference, said, web services are the path of the future. You may not like XML. This is happening to you now, right? And everybody in the conference like cringing, like, oh no, this is terrible. But you know what? That's how financial systems will integrate. Now we have a shot at doing it all over better and stateful and so much more interesting. So I was there for the service SOA wave. Marwan was there too for that. It's our shot. We need to get back into where the action is.
My best friend at IBM, Rachel Ryan, has got her DE on the SOA movement. Yeah, SOA's look at a high level. SOA is just common sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Service oriented architecture, by the way.
And connecting to COBOL systems that are running on P&Z series boxes from IBM, right? So it's like through 3 layers, 4 layers of wrappers, you're exposing like an old COBOL function to
first
to
person
web
to
services.
baseline a COBOL system. I will gift them one of my famous Jaja the Mad Cow of Innovation NFTs on open.
Totally. So my joke is like what do all your COBOL programmers will have in common in 5 years? They have the same retirement home address.
That's a good one, Andres.
By the way, John, I have, I know, someone who's got data on a lot of transformation projects, both in terms of spending and also in terms of the overruns and failure rates. So I'll reach out to them as well. Basically the Oxford mega projects out of Said Business School, right? So I'll reach out to them as well.
Okay. Any last words, Sonal and team? Again, welcome Keith and Yoav and Mark. It's going to be really fun. And by the way, everybody, 2 things we ought to add to the show. One, we should have more code reviews, right? And maybe that's something that Mark and Yoav and Keith can start doing. Is like saying, hey, we're playing with this kind of code, or here's this piece of the Battleship game that you might not have known. So I mean, every show ought to have a little segment, the code don't lie segment, which I won't play right now just because we're at the end of the meeting. And then we ought to have a little segment that like Andreas, we ought to call it Andreas's Standards Corner, right? Where we go through like one little tiny piece of the standard each show, and then we'll do that. We'll finish that in about 10 years. I think would be a really nice thing to do, right?
You mean we'll finish section 5 in 10 years?
Yeah, we'll just take it to 5 minutes and say, hey, here's a requirement, and you might not have known about it. Here's some things that you need, that you need to understand that. And then we can hire an editor to cut those up into a complete sort of video explainer of the whole standard.
Oh yeah, we can do that. It's like 300. So it's like it would take us about 400 weeks?
300 weeks. Yeah.
400 weeks. So it's like on the order of like, yeah, you're close to 10 years just for one. If we're then also doing the CCSM and the API one, then we're blowing past 10 years easily.
Yeah, I'll be long dead by then. All right. Everybody, it's great to see you all. Sonal, you get the last word if there's anything we need to announce from the.
Yeah, I would just like to say that next week will be our March General Assembly, where we'll have updates from all the working groups, and we'll also start circulating a form for any members in the community to send some questions our way. I know I've been getting a lot on Twitter and LinkedIn just about the status of the standard, the status of other work going on. So we'll make that part of our monthly General Assemblies. And quickly over to Samrat to tell us what will be coming on the Baseline Show India this Saturday.
Oh yes, thanks, Sonal. So of course you have the right to the last word. So I will pass it back to you. But 2 quick things. One, a lot of TSC members are here, and I just want to remind you all. Please do fill in the sheets that Sonal had circulated. I think that's really important for tomorrow's discussion. And yeah, on Saturday we are going to have Keith, Yoav, all of the gym gang once again, Mark, and what I hear from Keith is that they're more prepared this time. So let's hear it from core devs who are leading it from the front. And yeah, back to you, Sonal.
All right, please tune in to this week's Saturday Baseline India show and see you all on our General Assembly next week. Thank you for joining our live studio audience or tuning in on YouTube. Baseline.